Hi all, I'd just like to revisit the Nakamura versus Akobian game from the critical position in which Akobian decided to castle just kingside. I thought this was intuitively a bit risky, not just with the H pawn but also with this F pawn, potentially F5 and F6. And Nakamura played casually the move bishop takes C5, which does carry with it the risk that the knight on C5 will be useful for supporting B4, and then if the knight moves back, say to E2, then the knight coming to E4 and black would have a great game. I'll just show you that basic idea. So say here, F5, which is a move a lot of people might play at any chess level, but B4, and say you move the knight back, then knight E4, and black's getting an advantage here. So the queen, hasn't got the G5 square anymore, can't go to E3, so it can't actually use that diagonal. It can go to F4, but on F4, black could just take now maybe on F5, or alternatively, I think there's an even stronger move here. Rybka's going to suggest at depth 13. I think it's very important to get Rybka at depth 13 or 14 for these critical positions. So the Kotov way of studying critical positions was kind of trees of analysis, which I really don't think is practical a lot of the time in over the board games with limited time controls especially. But we've got technology now, and in critical positions, just putting a lot of depth to engine analysis can help find the truth, the true resources here available. And this position F6, and this is starting to be like quite significantly worse for white. So say E takes, now the move E5, it looks very surprising. So say the queen moves to H4, then either rook takes F6, but even stronger might be bishop takes F5, and black's got a wonderful game now. It could continue like this, where white's attack is just pawns at the moment, and black's got this queen E3 check, now knight D2, and this is winning the exchange almost. So king A1, or a piece, knight takes F1. Oh my god, G6. Okay, scrap that. Scrap knight takes F1. Here there's a strong move because G6 apparently is really strong. So rook takes F1. H takes F1. Knight takes. And now black's better. So you can see it's a really complicated position. And the critical idea is not to play knight E2. It was suggested that this was going to be played. So what happens after this? Knight takes A4. So white's just sacrificed the whole piece. And after F6, rook D8, I'd posted some faulty analysis yesterday with queen G5 and thinking king F8 here, but with the idea now that white plays queen takes G7. This was at depth 11, but waiting for Rybka to go to depth 13, there's a fantastic idea here, very simple and very effective, that you just take on G7 with the pawn. So king 8 you're queening, so that forces basically king G8. And here white prepares another piece sacrifice with bishop D3, so he's going to play bishop takes H7. So say knight takes B2, bishop H7, king takes, and now a quiet killer move, rook HF1. So the rook is going to make use of that F6 square and support the queen coming to H6, and it'll be mate on H8. That's the idea. So say queen A7, rook F6, and black here is defenseless. Say king G8, then actually rook H6 is going to be absolutely lethal. I wonder also if queen H6 is a move as well. Yes, that's killing as well. So either of these moves, and the black king's had it. So the black king's really trapped on G8. What I had yesterday was an instructive, because it was running Rybka at not the depth required, and I actually came up with this silly variation where black comes up better, because you know black is a piece up over there. Black almost comes up better. White would have to play rook h3 here, and there's only a minimal advantage for white now. Queen c7, because chasing the king like this is just, you know, harmless. Relatively to the other variation, it's nearly harmless. So if we go back to the critical variation, becomes basically after f5, b4, knight a4. So first brilliant piece sack, then f6. So the poor king is just, you know, a sitting target basically. Queen g5, and now the brilliant move f takes g7 to prepare yet another piece sack after king g8, bishop d3. This is actually why this is important to me, because you know, if you've seen some of my blitz games, there's this gambit line where I've often said f5 is really dangerous, and you know, it is like a common dangerous theme in the French that if you're going to be wiped out with f5 or not when white plays it. But here with the, you know, the king castle king side, it is just like a fixed unfortunate target, you know, for brilliant sacrifices. The damage, if we look at, you know, what has made all this possible, the damage has been done by, because white's actually undermining these two squares. If you think about it, he's getting time to undermine those two squares. So there's a logical basis for all these sacrifices. Once fg occurs, because g6 here, there's queen h6, and black's getting mated on g7. But once fg takes 7 occurs, then, you know, white's got use of f6 and h6. So here, but you know, there's still the question, you know, how to get an attack on h7. You know, is there really time? Because the slower method, say after knight takes b2, you can't, you know, play queen h6, because knight takes d3 and black's going to end up better. So say queen c7 here, how does white carry on the attack? There's nothing. So by actually sacrificing on h7, that means h6 becomes more important to use for a check. So this is absolutely crushing stuff. So I don't know if Akobian had sensed all of this during the game, but it is absolutely critical. So it casts, you know, maybe a novelty or something. If this is not known for, I don't know. You know, this is just casual use of f5. So let's look at the alternatives again, just to get familiar. If b4 and the knight had moved, black would have ended up better. So knight e2, knight e4, queen f4, and now there's a brilliant move f6, because after e takes e5. Now let's just have a look at queen takes e5. That loses the queen because check, so there's no rook d2 because of the knight, and now just winning the queen, knight d2 check, winning the queen. So there's a forest of variations, and it's, you know, with the aid of Rivka at high depths, we can start to see the forest that, you know, you wouldn't have been able to do this like 20 years ago. But so this is, I know, taking a GM game under the microscope now. There was no real time for this in the first video, so this is kind of the hardcore analysis at the critical moment in that game. So knight a4, brilliant piece sack. f6, starting to do damage to black's king position with the concrete threat of queen g5. By the way, let's have a quick look at h6, just out of interest. h6, would fg7 be strong here, just to try and break up the king position? Well, let's see. fg7 looks like a natural move, but at depth 11, king g7, black's got the advantage. Depth 12 still got the advantage. Depth 13 still has the advantage. Depth 14 still has the advantage. So it's not f takes g7, which seems natural. There's actually a very strong move here, rook h3. So rook h3, and so say rook d8, now rook g3, and the king tries to run for it. But again, this idea of f takes g7, it keeps the king on g8, because if king e7, then white just queens with a big advantage. Let's have a quick look at that. So here, just rook takes, and white's going to be better, and just taking on h6. So rook takes, bishop takes, queen takes h6. So basically, here, if the king has to go back to g8, now queen takes h6, and we have this similar sort of pattern that black's going to get mated, you know, via h8. So this was all, you know, in the critical moment, and I didn't really have time to go over too many variations. In fact, in the video editing yesterday to get to the 11 minutes, I took out some other variations, but they weren't at this depth. So thank you, YouTube commentators, for pointing out this fantastic idea that Nakamura must have had to allow b4 here. This idea of knight a4, an absolutely very, you know, deep idea, and means the whole variation for white is a lot more playable if you can just simply, you know, snap off on c5 and casually play f5. It's just genius, I think, and I thought I'd share that with you. Please leave any comments or questions on YouTube. Thanks very much.